our callers. And then when I'm on shows like yourself here, I try to be as open as I can. And I think that's one of the reasons Blake kind of spoke to me, because when he had me on and he was just so open, it was just, it's just cool. I like that. I like that side of wrestling fandom.
Yeah, absolutely, and I couldn't agree with you anymore, to be honest with you. All right, let's hit a couple of hot topics here. Let's go back a little bit chronologically. I'm going to spread myself out a little bit here while I have you on here. Okay, so one of the one of the main things in wrestling that has been a hot topic, obviously, is AEW. Kind of a subtopic, which I don't understand why this is an issue. The inclusion of Nyla Rose and Sonny Kiss, who are gay and trans athletes, respectively. Why is this still an issue in 2019? And here's the other part of this. I'm very proud. I'm, very happy for Sonny, because I, met with him and I not worked with him, but I shared a locker room with him once, twice, maybe. I can't remember. But he's worked so hard. Nyla's worked so hard. She just got back from a tour of Japan. Like, AEW set out a mission statement. If you're good, they want you. So why can't these fans is it just for the sake of complaining, or is there still a real issue here?
I think a lot of it depends on the people you're listening to be quite honest. Some folks might have an issue, and I've heard this and seen it on Twitter a lot, the issue of, are you trying to take credit for being, and I don't know how this is a pejorative, but people will say, like, are you trying to get credit for being woke? And I don't see it that way. Like you said, with AEW, they've always said, like, one, if you're good, we'll find you, and two, AEW is for everyone. And I think when you say everyone, you have to mean everyone. If you don't, that's a problem. I think, for instance, going back to my fandom of Progress, one of my favorite wrestlers in Progress, and someone who's been a star-crossed guest on my show is Jack Sexsmith. And his being a pansexual and coming out. And then one of my favorite guest hosts has been Innocent Isaiah Sintero, where Isaiah has done a phenomenal job of integrating his character in a way that isn't disrespectful to the LGBTQIA community, but also being an expression of, this is me. It's just me with the volume turned up. And I think the same thing with Nyla and with, I cannot remember my brain just stopped working.
It's okay. I'm surprised my brain's even working right now.
But yeah, it's to me, I think they're great characters and they're great wrestlers, and they also happen to have an opportunity to push more boundaries in terms of opening the door for fellow gay and trans athletes to be accepted. I think fans who are kind of complaining about it makes no sense to me, especially in the mindset of, for me, like I said, I watch a lot of indie. I watch some Japanese wrestling. I watch a little bit of DDT. I'll watch a little bit of, like, things that are kind of like off the beaten path. And so for me, if I can watch a blow-up doll wrestle a Bushi, why is it offensive that an athlete that is trans is in the ring? That should mean nothing to me. And so I think for fans, I think it's just chill, really, for the people who have issues with it, because there was a point. I'm looking actually now in my office here. I don't have a lot of wrestling memorabilia. I have a couple of things. I have like I'm big on posters, so I have like a Joey Janela Spring Break. I got my Progress and Suzuki Gun scarves, but I also now have Jim Mitchell, who was the Black Panther professional wrestling back in the 40s and 50s. I have a suitcase which I bought as like a birthday gift for myself. And there was a time when black athletes were seen as less than, and he had to wear a mask in order to wrestle white athletes as a wrestler. So I think if wrestling's going to evolve, and we're as fans have to evolve, we also have to evolve in our view of what makes a quote-unquote real pro wrestler.
Yeah, agreed. And one of my favorite follows on Twitter actually is I don't know if you heard of this gentleman, Paro. He's one half of I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, he pointed out there where this is great. Like, he's not dismissing how important and how big those two signings are, but there's definitely room for even more progress. And I think a lot of that has to do with fans' open-mindedness. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
And actually, while you're throwing names out there, and we're kind of talking names that probably nobody has ever heard, not that nobody's ever heard of, but not a vast majority of people have heard of. You hear of Effie?
Mm-hmm. No, I have not.
Oh, dude, he's another great follow on Twitter. I just go follow him. I think his tag is Kill Effie. He now we're here's another topic. Here, I'll throw this out there while I'm thinking of it. Between Joey Ryan's dick flips, Priscilla Kelly's incident, we'll leave it at that. And there was a thing that Effie did with Casanova Valentine, who was the king of the no ring, and he finished a match by giving Casanova Valentine a mandible claw with a condom on his hand. Is there room in wrestling for things like this? Is there, like, how do you feel about this? Because now between all this stuff going on, I feel like independent wrestlers are now, I don't blame them because look at the attention that Priscilla got. But is it kind of becoming a one-upsmanship versus concentrating on your craft kind of deal? Now, I'm not taking anything away from Priscilla or Effie or anybody because they're all talented wrestlers. But it just seems like now some of these talents are coming in the business of shock value, like the shock jock of pro wrestling kind of deal, like how Howard Stern and Opie and Anthony were back in the day. Like, how do you feel about all
that? I think that's a good example. I think the market, especially with wrestling, I'm a big fan of, and Bruce Mitchell's been a big proponent of this. Like, if there's a market, you have to kind of evolve your mindset to that market. So when I think of Joey Ryan, like when I first saw the, like, not even the dick flip, it was more or less like when I went to All In and I saw the penis druids, I couldn't stop laughing because there's a market. So because there's a market, there should be a presence there. Now, obviously, if there's a market for something that's like anti-LGBT, like racist or something like that, you shouldn't feed into that. But I feel like
agreed.
They aren't hurting anyone with it, but you have to have. There's a fine line. Like for instance, like you said, Priscilla Presley.
Priscilla Kelly. Yeah.
Not Elvis's wife. My God. Yeah, Priscilla Kelly's incident, that was tough for me, but as she said, it was, we've seen men like bleed hard way all the time, and a little, illusion of blood from other places kind of had everyone get all queasy. But I kind of align myself with Jim Cornette, where like there's kind of like lines of decorum. Like I'm not gonna have someone wrestle with scat or something like that just to say, oh, we've never seen it before. I think there's lines with regard to it, but also at the same time, I think we have to be open to people pushing boundaries and being able to push back. The market will dictate. Like, if no pun intended in the case of Joey Ryan, if there is going to be people that are interested, I mean, he's gone all around the world flipping dudes with his junk and dudettes. So who am I to judge? But like you said, Effie, I misheard you. I apologize. My phone is not the best at the moment. Effie, I had heard of. I have not followed on Twitter though. I had heard more or less that mandible claw incident was something I think even Jack had done it a couple of times in progress. I don't see that as necessarily a bad thing. I just think it's a different thing.
I'm not saying it was bad, or I'm not saying it's one way or the other, indifferent, but excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, like comparing the shock jock time when Howard Stern was big and now O&A is trying to make their name known and everything like that. Now it's kind of, for me at least, what's the next thing? Because, we can go back to when Joey Janela and Zandig did that spot off the top of the warehouse and through the truck. Because of while social media and YouTube have been a blessing for pro wrestlers and pro wrestling as an industry alike, there's certain things where it's like, oh, dude, come on, I mean, yeah. I remember when Joey was training and stuff, and I watched that. I'm like, God, like you're just right there. Don't hurt yourself. But I don't know. It's becoming that thing of a shock value, and I don't want anybody to get hurt one way or another. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think back with you brought up Opie and Anthony. They're a great example because Yeah, they came on the heels of Howard Stern, but at some point they pushed the boundaries so far that they had to get off the air. I remember before they went to XM or Sirius, they had done a thing where they were challenging people to, have sex in a confessional,
Sex
and
for
that was
Sam.
in New York at the time. And it was like, and then they got on the satellite, and satellite was a great bastion for radio because it was like free to do what you want. But then even then they got in trouble because of the incident with I can't remember which.
It was an
incident with the lady with.
Yeah, it was an incident where a lady had allegedly was like attacking him for no reason, and he was just going on racist tirades on Twitter, which basically really screwed him. Plus, at the timing, I think the timing it had happened, like I think it was like a holiday weekend, and all of a sudden it was okay. Well, now they have no chance to defend themselves, which there's no defense for what he had said. I'm just going based on what they were saying on the air following Anthony's firing. But yeah, no, it's there's even with the open platform, there's ways to take it too far.
Yeah, and I think with wrestling it's the same thing. You're gonna have these, it started out as pirates and outlaws, as Chris Jericho would talk about. And so when you have people with that mindset, they're always going to be pushing the envelope. We as fans and we as like the paying customer can help dictate what is and isn't cool. I remember one of the things, to your point, like where there wasn't. Well, actually, yeah, I guess there was, because typically BOLA, Battle of Los Angeles weekends with PWG are over. I want to say that's not Memorial Day. That's
Labor Day.
Labor Day. Over Labor Day weekend. You have a 3-day event, and you really don't have a chance to, like with wrestling media, unlike Opie and Anthony, you can kind of hop on Twitter and kind of defend yourself, and you don't have to do a public statement. During BOLA a couple of years ago, Roderick Strong used the F slur talking to a fan, and instead of like leaning into it and saying, well, this is my character and blah, 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 he got on Twitter and said, hey, I'm sorry. I took that way too far. And anyone that was offended, which to me, usually if you say anyone's offended, just say I screwed up. Don't say if anyone was offended. But that's the bridge too far for me right now. He owned it and moved on. I think that's what you have to do, because he thought he was being a heel, and the reaction from the fans wasn't "boo, you're a jerk." It's like, hey, that sucked, dude. Like we're all trying to have a good time here, but that sucked. And so I think reading the room, the more you can do that, the better you're going to be. And I think as wrestling fans, we have that ability to help with that, as far as pushing the standard back at the people who are trying to be creative and give themselves an opportunity to make money.
True, and to your point, when you're saying to anybody who was offended, I'm sorry, you're now opening up the floodgates to people who, even if they're not offended, they're like, oh, well, I accept your apology. It's just like trying to get attention. Like, just shut up, say whether you support him or not, that's one thing, but don't make it about yourself. And people do that too much on social media. It's such a... I can't. It's gonna set me off on a tirade. Anyway, yeah. So let's get to something else. And you're mentioning Janela's spring break, like with your memorabilia. How amazing is it? Because again, we're in the greatest time right now for pro wrestling since the Attitude Era. Now, I think, and this is a very unpopular opinion, I think right now is better than the Attitude Era, strictly because, I mean, there are characters there, but a lot of them are on the independents, but now you have access to see them. The athleticism's better, the talent is better, the diversity is better, because, back in the Attitude Era, I mean, I don't know so much on the independent scene with women's wrestlers. Now you have women's wrestlers all over the place, and, there's definitely a diverse pool of talent out there. So with that being said, what are you I'm just curious. Now talents are getting, like, Janela's spring break. You have Joey Ryan's penis party. That sounds so strange to say. Then you have, Stan Styles' Intergender Bonanza, which is an all intergender wrestling show. And there's a couple other people out there doing such things. what do you think about these things? Like,